Hey guys, it's Jake here with etrailer. Today we have a 2019 Jeep Cherokee and we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit for flat towing. When you're flat towing your Jeep Cherokee down the road, you're going to have some way to get a lighting signal to the back. It's just like pulling a trailer. If you're pulling a trailer with your Jeep Cherokee, you're going to have to get those lighting signals to the back of the trailer. And that is to let others know what your intentions are when you're driving down the road, whether it's stopping, turning, or changing lanes. With this particular kit, the reason I like it so much is that it's going to install in line with your factory wiring behind your taillight. So you're not going to have any goofy magnetic lights that you have to stick up here. The problem with those that I really don't like is that you have to set them up every single time you go to flat tow your vehicle. Either that, or I have seen some people, what they'll do is they'll stick them here for their entire trip, and they're just going to tuck that 4-pole in through the back door and just slam the door on it to keep it there. I like this much better because you're going to have some sort of wiring on the front of your vehicle for either one of the lights, so you might as well make it nice and clean for the installation and utilize the taillights that are already back here. When it comes to picking out the right diode wiring kit for you, there's a couple different kits on our website available. One is going to have just the 4-pole wiring and the diodes, which is the kit that we use today. And another one is going to have the 6-pole plug that mounts on the front of your vehicle and the pigtail that goes from your 7-pole to your 6-pole. The reason I say it kind of depends on your situation is if you're anything like the person that has this setup, which I also highly recommend, it's a great combination, is they have the Roadmaster Nighthawk tow bar that comes with the wiring pre-wired into the tow bar. It comes with the safety cables, and it's going to come with a 6-pole plug to mount to the front of your vehicle. That's where that 4-pole wiring and the diodes come into play. You don't have to get another 6-pole plug and another pigtail because it's just going to sit in the back of your RV and not get used. As far as the installation goes, this install's really not too bad. I'd say probably the hardest part about it is getting that 4-pole from the front of the vehicle to the back. I am going to show you how to do that and how to wire it to the back of your taillights. Once you get up into the taillights, if you follow along with me in this install, you should have no problem getting these connected because I'm going to show you what wires they are and where they're at on the plugs. If you don't feel like doing this install yourself, or you really don't trust yourself to get it done, check out our dealer locator on our website. You can find a dealer closest to you to be able to do this install, and more importantly, maybe do some of the other components. The base plates for the Jeep Cherokee are not really too fun to do, so you can have them do your entire setup all at one time. But with that being said, if you want to follow along, go ahead and watch the rest of this video. To begin your installation, we're going to need to run our 4-pole wiring from the front of our vehicle by our base plate to the back so that we can tie it into our taillights. I've already done that, so we're going to show you how I did it. Here on our base plate, this is where our 6-pole is eventually going to go, so I just always tie it off with about 4 to 6 inches extra here. Tie it off with some electrical tape so that you don't accidentally pull it back through. It's very frustrating to have to fish it back out if you use all the slack back there. We just ran it up over the base plate, ran it back here, and when you're routing this, there's no specific place where you have to go with it. I went on top of this frame rail portion. Just use zip ties, as many as you have, or can find a spot to put, but I just ran it along here. You want to stay away from anything hot or moving. That's where the zip ties come in handy. You can just tie it off to keep it away. And then here, I ran it up over inside this plastic panel, ran it all the way back, and since it's inside the panel, you don't necessarily have to tie it off to anything in there. You can drop the panel and tie it off if you want to, but then I just ran it here, came out up over top of all these frame rail pieces, again tying it off to the frame rail if you can, and then that leads us back here to where I ran it up and over top of this wiring harness, and now we're ready to go up into our taillight housing. Now we're up at our taillights. We need to take these off because we're going to have to run that wiring up into them and tie it into the wiring on the back side. We've got a T30 Torx bit that we can take these 2 screws out. And then we should be able to kind of wiggle our taillight, and it should pull straight out. Just like that. Got these little nibs here that stick inside of the rubber grommets on our vehicle. And all we have to do is pop this little red safety tab and then push this in and unplug it. Now I just like to strip off the factory jacketing, this tape that they put around the wiring. We'll just strip this off, that way it'll expose our wires so that we can identify their functions. Now we're going to test out our signals. What I've got is a light tester, and I've got a little piece of wire so I can poke the ends of these prongs to be able to figure out what our functions are. I've already tested it, but we'll show you how we test it. I'm just going to slide it in here. And then I'm going to have Tom turn on the running lights, turn them off, and you know that the white wire with the gray stripe on our passenger side is going to be the running light signal. And then we'll check this one over here, which is the furthest one to the right of that one. That is going to be our brake signal, so we'll just hit the brakes. And we know that the white wire with the green stripe is going to be our brake signal. Now on the driver's side of our vehicle, the wire location on the plug is still the same. So if you look at these 6 openings, the top left, if you have the this red snap pin on top, the top left is still going to be our running light signal, and the top right is going to be our brake signal. The wires, the top left wire is going to be our white with a yellow stripe, and then the top right one, I believe it is just a plain white wire. Now we've got our wire fished up through our taillight. All I did was I just took a piece of airline tube that we had. You could probably use a little bit of what you got in your kit if you got an Air Force One. If not, you can use a coat hanger, or a lot of people will tie a little nut to a piece of string, drop it down through here, and usually the nut will work its way down. Then you can tie your wiring off to that, pull it up. What we need to do is we're going to connect the yellow and brown wire over here. We're going to ground the white wire over here, and we're going to run the green wire with a brown jumper wire over to the passenger side. Usually we'll like to go underneath, and for this particular vehicle, I think I'm going to try to go inside the vehicle because the muffler under here is huge and it's very hard to stay away from it. So we're going to try to do that. But what you need to do is strip back these wires. We're not going to need hardly any of this length, but just separate the wires, and then we should be able to use the green and brown wire just with what comes in your kit to go over to the passenger side. Now we need to splice our wiring into our factory wiring. We'll start with our running light signal, which we know on the driver's side is the white with the yellow stripe. We've got it peeled back. Just cut that wire in half, just like that. And I'm not sure why, but from the factory, these are already tangled up. So get those straightened out. Just makes your wiring a lot easier. We'll strip each one of those back. And we're going to twist those ends to make them better to crimp to. We're going to take a blue spade terminal that comes on they're pre-installed on your diodes like this. Just pop them off. And because they're pre-installed on those diodes, we may have to crimp down the teeth on the inside here to make them bite a little bit better. Otherwise, the vibrations going on the road might wiggle them off. We'll get these installed. Just crimp them down. If you're using a set of manual crimps, these kind of have like a set pressure to them. And I really like them because then you can't over crimp. If you're using a manual crimp, these are really small wires, so don't crimp too hard. You can split the wire. Now we can take our diode and start making our connections. We'll start with the stop and turn, which is going to be our yellow wire we ran up. You're going to have an out and 2 ins. The ins are going to be the wire that you ran up here, so we'll start with our yellow wire. And then the other in is going to be the wire coming from our vehicle. So we've got our plain white wire on the driver's side, which is our stop and turn. That's the one we want to combine with this yellow wire. So we'll connect that up. And then going out to our plug, that's going to be the out because it goes out to the taillight. We'll take the other end of that white wire and connect it up to the other side of the diodes. If any of these, like I said earlier, if any of these are a little loose when you push them on, they're super easy to push on. Just crimp down that tooth a little bit, and then they should bite pretty tight onto the diode. And we're going to repeat that same process with the brown wire Although the difference there is that you're going to have to tie this in and have a little jumper wire to go over to the passenger side. Now we're going to take the backing off of each of our diodes and we're going to stick them together. Now what I'm going to do is I need to run the brown and green wire over to the passenger side, and like I said, I'm going to try to run it inside, which shouldn't be too difficult. We have to take apart a couple of panels here, but I think it's going to be much easier and much neater than going under the car. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll come back and show you how I did it. Now for the green and brown wire, what I did was I just cut a small slit in this grommet. I pulled it out, cut a small slit in it. There's a little opening back here. You can run it back through that opening, and then you want to check back, pull this panel off, and then to get this panel to pull out further, you're going to have to take, there's a little toe loop down here. You'll take that out, and then there's this little knob that's up here in this hole. Just unscrew that. And then you can pull this panel out more, and if you look right down inside this crack, you'll be able to see our wire running through there. So just run it through that opening, check back, come through here, and then you'll see it right here. This part's going to be easy. We'll run it right underneath this kick panel, which we took off. It's a little skid panel. You just pull straight up on it, pop that off. We'll run it along here. Typically there's wiring in here we can tie off to. There isn't here, so we'll just have to be careful when we put that panel back that we don't pinch any of these. And then when we go over to the passenger side, we're going to remove those same fasteners off of the panel over there and be able to run it back the same way. Now on the passenger side, we've got our wire all run over here. I put that same slit in this grommet. You're going to make those same connections that you did on the driver's side. Instead of a yellow wire, you're going to use that green wire to get the right turn signal on here. The last thing we're going to need to do is connect our ground wire back here to the sheet metal on the inside of our taillight housing. I just took the small ring terminal, crimped it on the end of our white wire, and then took the self-tapping screw that comes with your kit and tap it into the sheet metal. Just be very careful. Do not send this screw in there too fast because you'll strip out that sheet metal and then you'll have a bad ground. Now that we've got our wiring hooked up in the back of our vehicle to our diodes, we're going to have to come back up to the front and we'll connect our 6-pole to our 4-pole, and we're going to test out our wiring to make sure everything's working properly. What we'll need to do is we're just going to strip back each of these wires. You don't need to strip back very much. You actually don't want to strip back too much, maybe a 1/4 inch, because the openings for these, where these screws go in, the wires are held in place, are not very deep, and you don't want extra wiring sticking out of it. We'll just take a little Phillips head screwdriver. The way that this is going to work is starting here at the top, which is where this flat part for the lid is, where it opens up. We're going to do brown, white, yellow, and green in that order. Now we've got our 6-pole plug connected up to our trailer tester box. Essentially this box is just going to act like the RV and send signals back to our taillights. We know that our taillights are working, our left turn, our brake lights, and our right turn. Now that we know everything's working properly, we're going to take some electrical tape, and I'm just going to tape up these connections. That way this whole thing is encompassed in electrical tape so that these connections do not come, they don't come undone, and so that you don't hear this metal diode rattling against the sheet metal. Now once we've got all our components mounted up on our vehicle, we can turn our attention to the fascia. What I recommend is go ahead and get all your other components for your braking system and stuff like that mounted on there too, because you're going to have to trim for at least the breakaway switch, if not also the whatever type of fitting you're going to need for your braking system. So what you want to do is lift your fascia back up onto your vehicle. We marked out the spots where we're going to have contact with the components on the front, and now we're going to cut them out. Now with our fascia lifted back up into place, we found our holes were exactly where we needed them to be. These two prongs from our base plate, if you've got those, you shouldn't have to drill those out. They should stick right out between these. And then we just drill the hole for the back of our 6-pole. Other than that, we'll just go ahead and put all our fasteners back where they came from. Once you get everything buttoned back up and you know your system's working properly, that's going to do it for the installation. Well guys, hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Roadmaster diode wiring kit is right for you in your 2019 Jeep Cherokee.